I'm here in Boston, Massachusetts. You take 93 North, you're going to get it off at Dorchester Logan Airport. You want to get right into the tunnel. It's called the Century Artery Tunnel. They call it that because every car is parked in there in such a way that it's always red on the traffic map. And that'll spit you right out here into Forest Park. And that's where I'm shooting a video today on a 1973, but built in January 1974, Volvo 164. Every Volvo show, there is an award granted called the Road Warrior Award. This is an award that is for a car that otherwise should not or could not make a journey like the one that it just made to get to the show. This is that car. 1973, actually built in January 1974, I think. Volvo 164. This is a beautiful 94 green. We're gonna get back to our normal voices here, but it's my job today to go over this car and tell the owner all the things that it needs and kind of coordinate with a shop to get some idea of what they can expect or what they're going to do to get this car back to being perfect. You'd never guess that it's a Road Warrior based on its appearance because it's actually quite attractive on the outside, which is why it was an easy thing to say yes to when purchasing. However, you don't know what it feels like until you get in there and then you find out that the axles are dancing and the brakes clunk and the suspension's clunky. The one thing that it did really, really well was make a U-turn. Let's flip. Okay, when the microphone flipped over, now I'm going to go over this car entirely, and we'll just have a look at all the things that it's needing and some of the specs. If you're looking for a Volvo, you could use this as a buyer's guide for the 164, as most of the production cars right now are going to be this fuel-injected E version. So that was 1973, 1974, and 1975, the latter 3 years. The first 3 years will have, well, the easiest thing you can tell is, of course, the wider grille opening. On this one, believe it or not, underneath this rubber strip, and you can see the corner of it right there, they actually added a panel, just a metal panel to the bottom, so they could shorten the grille down to this plastic single-piece design, unlike the wide mouth, which is my car. That's Ivy. I gotta stop talking like this. I'm so mimetic, I'll pick it up everywhere I go. Just ask my friends from South Carolina. Started saying y'all. Or is that Texas? Yeah, that'd be Texas. So the point here is, this car seems to be mostly original, but we kind of have to do some dissecting work. First thing first, January 1974. The early cars didn't have this sticker. This is chassis number, oop, there goes the door on my head. Chassis number 118499. And it's awfully windy, so I hope that it's not picking up too much on the microphone. But bear with me. 187,788. 187,000 miles. It's gonna be running the Bosch D-Jet on the inline 6 3.0, and the seats are sun-faded. They're vinyl, not leather, which may have been a 74 thing. I'm not an expert on that, but they seem pretty rough. The foam's collapsed, which is quite normal. There's also these elastic straps underneath. And you find the snaps in the front. Looks like one of them's already off, and I can just reach the other side, pull that up, and there we go. This actually uses the metal style, and it's these are the seatbelt buzzer wires, which are a simple expansion plug. You know, so when you sit down, it expands the contact and turns off the seatbelt reminder light and/or buzzer. Let me just go ahead and put those snaps, or at least the one, back in. Now, the shop that I dropped Ivy off at and picked this car up, they had every kind of car there. They're really right in the corner of 93 and whatever the other highway is that goes right through Boston, but it was they seemed way too enthusiastic to be working on this car because nobody seems to like D-Jet. Even Volvo shops will shy away from it, and it's not a difficult thing, but there are 7 or 8 different sensors and a wiring harness that is quite brittle to deal with. You can see how bouncy the mirror is, which is quite a normal thing. It looks like somebody's already tried gluing it in place once before. So, the interior is a nice caramel, rich brownish color. It's got plastic grab handles. They've changed those over in the later years. But for the most part, everything seems to be here. Of course, nobody's ever going to sit in the back seat, but all of this... Thank you.
What is it?
This is a 74.
Wow.
Yeah. Kind of just going over it and trying to see what we need.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, making a list.
Good service and new seats, man.
It needs new seats for sure.
Yeah.
But she's sturdy. She'll start, run, and drive. That's what matters.
Those engine, man.
Yeah, this is a 6-cylinder, so it's got a little bit more torque too. Yeah.
6?
Yeah, inline 6. Here, we'll open it up.
Whoa.
I'm making my way to the hood anyway. This wind's gonna take it off.
Whoa. That's a big engine.
Yeah, there's a lot. Small compared to the Italians, but still pretty big.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So simple, man. I love those vehicles.
Yeah, yeah. And the carburetors are even simpler. There's almost nothing on this side.
Yeah.
But
I used to have a 66 Dodge Dart that had
Mhm.
similar engine
Yep.
to this. Nowadays, everything sucks, man. Everything takes
oh goodness, yeah.
a lot of crap.
Computers.
This is the AC.
Yep. It's a huge compressor too.
Yeah. It's off.
Yeah, the belt's off, but we're trying to figure out what's going on. This is my first time looking at it, so just making that list. No, I'm looking at it for somebody who bought it. I have one as well, but mine's a 69. So I know the cars pretty well, and I'm helping him with some of the questions he'll have. Yeah. But it drove pretty okay, you know.
Yeah.
It needs some suspension work. Spoiler alert.
Yeah, man. Car like this definitely deserve a nice style.
Yeah, so we're gonna go through everything.
Nice and shiny.
Keep it the original color too.
Yeah.
What was your name?
Lee.
Lee? I'm David.
Right.
Nice to meet you. Okay. That's the thing. These things garner attention, I'll tell you what. So, first things first. It's running okay. It sounds like it's got a weird idle, and the idle's typically controlled. Take care. Idle's typically controlled through this screw here. You can see one hose has been replaced. There's a new old stock sticker. The other one needs to be replaced. Don't know if you can find those. My wheelhouse is much more in the carbureted cars, but I've done things like wiring repairs, cleaning of sensors, helping David Hunt in his 73 get running. But this thing, it's gonna need work everywhere. I'm not sure. This is the pump for the washer, so it's just chilling there. What else? There's so many things. Where do we start? Okay, the wires, looks like they've all been changed. They're beefy looking for whatever reason. The coil fits in there fully, which tells me it's an original. Yep, I see the Bosch sticker coil. The plugs on the firewall are missing. That's fine. They're usually just gray brittle plugs, even more brittle than the rubber that's used here. As far as the big things like rust, well, does the battery tray have it? Battery trays get really bad. I was looking at another 69 today that had 50,000 miles, and it is a little rough. This is kind of typical, especially on top of the battery. The acids can mess with the paint a little bit, but this was down in Kentucky, I believe it was, or Kansas. I think Kentucky. So it had some moisture, humidity, trees, leaves, the usual. It probably would be much worse out here if it lived in Boston, but the fella who owns this is even further north, and well, why don't we start it up in a minute and we'll go ahead and check her all out. There's certain things I can't do with one hand, like maybe checking all the fluids, but we'll see what we can do. As far as a brief overview, the body's in great shape. The headlight rings, it was a $5 dealer option in 1969 to have them chromed, and about half the cars you will see do have chrome rings on them. The fog lights are a very rare accessory. The switch for the fog lights should actually be, if we're going for all original, right here. There's a little plastic plug that is textured to match the dashboard. But somebody else has added fog lights. Switch somewhere else I saw. Why don't we just give her a start and we'll see. Notice that the paper's crooked here and here. The whole lens is a little hazy. All the lights turn on, and when I first got into started, it took a few cranks for the fuel to get up to the front. The fuel gauge level sender isn't working, and I found that out because I put in 7 gallons of fuel. You don't want to run these pumps empty. If you run them empty, what that's going to do is all the crud in the tank gets into the pump and it seizes the pump up. It could burn out the motor, or it could just plug the pump and your car will die before the motor burns out. But it gets very frustrating and expensive if you start replacing pumps just because of a clogged pump. There's also a filter in the tank, which is pre-pump, and there's no filter up front because it all gets done there. There should be 2 filters. One is in tank, one is out of tank, and I don't know if they're both pre-pump or not, but let's just give her a little rev here. Wow. When you really put your foot down on it, It almost sounds like a like a muscle car, but I think we've just got an exhaust leak somewhere. This should be very composed and quiet. The 74s did away with the aluminum trim. I think even 73, 72, maybe even 71, I don't know. And they just went to plastic here. I don't want to get distracted with the details because I just need to stick to the list, but let me tell you, the rear end's going to walk a lot on this because bushings are shod. Not that I can feel it by hand, but when I was going over some of the metal plates in traffic, it was dancing the rear left to right like that. The brakes squeal everywhere. The door gaps seem pretty even. They get a little sunken in because enough of the opening and closing of these latches can shift the latches, and also the rubber seals, as they collapse, could also affect the final position of each door. But the closing sound is perfect and quite nice. The temperature gauge seems to work, I'm hoping. It sits right between cold and normal. The big washer bottle, I think I mentioned that already. This is just a generic replacement, but somebody's got a breather in there. And for whatever reason, this is non-adjustable, but it should be an adjustable one. I think 29 PSI is where they're supposed to be set. Because Volvo tried to keep costs down, a lot of the linkage for this is very similar to the linkage for the carbureted cars. But that right there is the kickdown cable for the transmission. She sounds okay. There's no major clunking or knocking inside the engine, which would indicate something like a worn camshaft lobe, a bearing knock, rod knock, things like that. So she sounds very healthy, which is good. That's a good foundation to begin restoring the car. This thing is very hard to find, and the wiring is not so brittle here, but places that get more heat, look at that wire right there. Brittle on the ends, breaking. They still have their rubber boots on them, that's good. You might not be able to hear me down there, but that's all stuff to look for. The brake fluid typically is what leaks and starts to create the corrosion that you see down here. So that's something to look into. The booster seems to be working, and you know what I'm noticing? The steering shaft has 2 U-joints on it. That's actually kind of cool. Mine just has 1, but it's got power steering. Oh, 1, 2, 3 ignition. Ooh, I want to buy that off of this car. That's why. Okay, so the wires there were, I noticed that they were plugged off, and the 1, 2, 3 ignition is actually really good, and that's probably why it's running so nicely right now. The other big drama is just all the fuel sensors. For example, these white wires, you see the 4 of them, or 3 of them here, run to some temperature sensors on the front side of the head. Then there's the cold start valve. This is the manifold absolute pressure, but it's called something else. I think it's just called like a vacuum or pressure valve, or manifold air. I don't know. It's essentially a map sensor. And then you have 11 fuel lines into each injector, and each injector has 3 rubber O-rings. That's just too much. She seems to run okay though. There's a charcoal canister. There is no air pump added, so it's not a California emissions car, which is going to be a really nice thing. Latches really nicely. Peeking down at the suspension, I'm going to go ahead and turn the engine off so I can hear myself talk a little bit better. But check that out, power steering. Idle drops, but it doesn't die. So here's the thing, she's running and driving, and for that price, it's worth, as is, in this nice body shape, around, I'd say $5,000 to $6,000. Just because you can't find a lot of 164s, their desirability is a lot in their rareness. And the ones that are surviving can be in any condition, from okay to awful. This one's in really good shape, so it's a good platform for somebody who wants to take on that project. All the parts are pretty available, and I don't see much in the way of rust here. Doesn't look like a front main seal is leaking. We have a transmission cooler braided line. Those are good. Nice, good quality. The steering ends have been replaced. I see the blue seals on the lock rings there. The center link looks older or dirty. The lower control arm bushings I can almost guarantee are going to be shot, and there's a lot of leaking over there by the power steering pump. That's quite normal. Or it's just the side of the engine. Typically valve cover starts leaking down. And I think Cleo over at the shop has mentioned that. Let's check the lights here. There should be lights in every one of these reflectors. There should be the option for them to be on with the key. Okay. I gotta find where that switch is. These amber lights are not on. Maybe I'll try the key on and see if they do come back. This is all similar between early and later cars. The mirrors did get bigger. Let's enjoy a dog for a second. Okay. Yeah, I don't know where the fog light switch is, but that's okay. I don't see the indicator lights here being on. I don't see that one being on. This one's on. The bulbs are small. I think they're still available. And in the rears, I've got a brake light out because the amber light inside, it measures voltage across each circuit in the lights, is going on every time I hit the brakes. Plus a guy told me I have my brake light out. But crash bumpers look okay. Funny, it doesn't stick out so much in the rear. I wonder if somebody's pushed it in. In fact, I almost guarantee that's what's happened. Not from an accident, but perhaps they didn't like how much it stuck out and they bumped it in themselves. They're supposed to be... You can see them right in there. But you can drill them out. They're just hydraulic. There's the mufflers, the springs, the rear axle. The important thing is that it runs and drives. And actually, if you reverse the tires, I noticed a white stripe in there, if you're so inclined. The Volvo Moose sticker, well, what can I say about that? Maybe somebody liked it was funny. Maybe somebody thought it was a sporty Volvo and they wanted to beat on it. Or maybe somebody just appreciates Volvo and likes the sticker because it's tasteful colors. It doesn't complement or contrast. Doesn't contrast with the car. It might complement it. It's in a good spot. So take your pick on that. I don't like to speculate too much, but I think let's go to the trunk now. It's difficult as a one take. I don't know what I'm forgetting or what's left. I pulled this back and saw that there wasn't rust in there, which is good, at least on this side of the wheel arches. Typically you'd see it right in that gap. That one's a little collapsed. She's got beauty rings, that's cool. Extra lenses, horn grills, other distributor parts, another fuel pump. Maybe it's already been changed. And then here's another distributor. This one is probably the original. Yep, running on points. And it's been serviced a little bit, but okay. The tire here is a 195/75, which was a size that they used. But you can see that it barely fits in the spare tire well. I'm reaching the end of my time with this car, but some of the other spots rust all along here. This is fixable. The trouble is if you want it to be perfect, you have to then fill this in. And if you want it to be even more perfect, you don't just fill it in, you fill it in and then you create the stamped ledge here, or you find another trunk from a 140 and just put that on. These pieces can be very difficult to find, if not impossible. I don't know if that means the car's been repainted, because you see it's always another shade right there. So I'm going to go ahead and say yes, it was repainted. A little bit of rust here and here. Of course, there's some rust down here. There's a big fiberglass repair. Oof. For the 74, they moved the tank further, and it's up above the axle instead of being back here. For safety reasons, you're not going to crush the tank in a car accident. But the rubber mat's still in place. And if I started pulling the tank out, then we'd see more and more of common areas for rust, perhaps. There's no guarantee for that, but this is also a really common area here. This is body seam that has moisture catching properties, basically. So it's always getting a little gross in there. Okay. And you can see on the outside of the panels a little bit of rust there. These taillights are actually in really good shape. I should turn the lights off so we don't have any issues with our battery in a few moments. The windshield's good. If you want to know if you have an antenna in your windshield, look for these two stripes here, and they're going to run up. Come on, go ahead and focus on my hand. You see the stripes right at the tip of my fingers? Follow that up, and then up to about here. They split, and then they go their separate ways, and they will end right here. So those are the antenna stripes. There will be a wire that goes to the bottom of the windshield, and that can get very corroded and broken over time. But look at this. She's a good looking car for the most part. There's not much. Maybe we can poke around a little bit. walking into traffic here for you guys. This is okay rust, that's not so bad. That's a little more troubling. Floor pans are available, places like VP Auto Parts, and everybody who buys from them and retails the parts at a more expensive price. Normal to see when the limiters break. A little bit of rust. It's not rotted out on the floors. That's the important thing. Let's look at another common spot. If you have a leaky heater valve underneath the carpet, look in the corners there for rust. I don't have that kind of time right now, but it is cool to see this. And let's make sure we'll fire up again. Let me take you for a drive, and I'll end the video when the driving gets kind of hectic because I gotta figure out how to get back to the shop. Oof. This awful. Nope. No thank you. Door panels are available. The armrests I don't think are available. Seatbelts are here. They kind of work. But check this out. With the brake off, everything stays off like it should. And then I put the brake and I have my bulb failure light going on. Okay, that's drive. 3-speed auto. Let's try it out. Okay. Oof, it lurched and it shifted weird. Let's try it again. The Borg-Warner 30 is adjustable, but it also just needs a little bit of love here and there. Sometimes a good rebuild will just be all you need, or what you need. There's a whole day of events out here. The brakes are pretty rowdy. The suspension's bouncy. The bushings are clunky. But you know what? She starts, moves, and stops, and it hasn't stalled on me in traffic, so I've been quite happy with that. Nice. She'll go right back down. It's a little weird on the downshift, so yeah, I don't know what to do. This is a weird stop sign. I should probably go. I'm not sure where I'm headed, but wish me luck as I navigate Boston back to the body shop. That's all for this video. Bye-bye now.